New at 10 in the coronavirus outbreak, questions tonight about the purchase of a temporary morgue in St. Louis County. So far, it's held relatively few bodies. Now, questions about its necessity in the first place. News 4 investigator Lauren Traeger is questioning the use of your tax dollars.
As coronavirus took hold of the St. Louis region, local officials hoped for the best, but planned for the worst. In April, St. Louis County announced the build-out of a temporary morgue in Earth City, a dignity transfer center to accommodate those who had passed away around the region. The space was donated, but the cost to build it out, close to $2 million, with capacity to hold 1,300 bodies.
Your initial response, I think, as a member of the public would be, oh my gosh, this is going to be horrible. This COVID-19 is terrible.
County Council member Tim Fitch says he was surprised by the surge morgue.
How did you find out about it?
Through the media. There was no conversation with any of the council members that I'm aware of.
He says he understands concerns that the permanent morgues, like the medical examiner's office, may have been overwhelmed. But as a former police chief, Fitch says previous emergency plans had provided an option: county-owned ice rinks.
We have other options, and those ice rinks were an option that we had planned to use, so I don't know why they did not.
Another option, Fitch says, funeral homes.
I was a little surprised, of course, that it had been done.
Donald Otto of the Missouri Funeral Directors and Embalmers Association says their organization wasn't consulted before the morgue was built.
Do you think the funeral homes could have fulfilled this need without a temporary morgue?
At least right now, yes.
St. Louis City built a temporary morgue too. Refrigerated trucks covered by a tent in a parking lot. Total cost around $28,000. They never had to use it. Right now, the morgue in St. Louis County is empty. To date, 56 bodies have been stored there before moving on to final resting places.
And does it come on the county's back that the county taxpayers should pay to store these decedents?
But Fitch points to the math: $36,000 per body.
At this point in time, are you concerned that that was a waste of public funds?
Yes, absolutely. And I don't believe that there was a need to spend this kind of money for this purpose.
Am I disappointed that we don't have more deaths? No.
Spring Schmidt is St. Louis County's acting director of health. She says images of refrigerated trucks outside hospitals had outraged other communities. The county wanted to act with deep concern for potential loss of life.
We knew that testing wasn't adequate enough, and we'd seen places all over the states and across the world who had just had such an enormously high rates of death.
She says they did consider alternatives. In fact, documents obtained by News 4 show ice rinks are no longer considered good options by experts.
Looking back on it, would you do things differently?
No. Everything that we planned, every conversation that we had, I think led us to this path. We had such, I think, heartfelt conversations about our concerns and our fears for where we could be.
She says at the time, less was known about the virus or how effective social distancing measures would be to know what capacity they would need.
Based on what we know now, do you think 1,300 was too many?
So I think that we couldn't have predicted how much and how quickly the curve would have been.
With deaths nearing 500 in St. Louis County alone, she says the center served its purpose.
They went through that center with every bit of care that we could exercise at that time. And so I don't regret it.
And while Fitch says it's likely time to dismantle it,
I would assume that since we've already spent $2 million, there's going to be a huge push to justify that cost, so I would expect that it'll be up and running for quite some time.
Schmidt says they're not yet ready to close the temporary morgue for good.
We're not through this yet. We're still in an epidemic and a crisis.
Emergency management officials tell me that the cost for the temporary morgue will be shared between the 6 counties that utilized it, including St. Louis City, although St. Louis County will bear about 60% of the cost. Officials say they will seek reimbursement of the funds from a variety of sources. They also say they've already closed down about half of the morgue and reduced staffing there. They also say some of that equipment you saw being installed can be utilized elsewhere and in other disasters. Certainly, we will keep tracking the spending. At the Emergency Operations Center in Baldwin, I'm Lauren Traeger, News 4 Investigates.